Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about something I get a lot of questions about. Every mob guy had a nickname. Tony Ducks, Chin, Gigante, even my name, Sammy the Bull. How did we get them and what did we use them for? I'm going to tell you that today. No, it's not something that people used just all the time on themselves. Hello, I'm Sammy the Bull. No, that's ridiculous. I mean, it was just given to you by, usually somebody else gave you a nickname. And they came in different ways, stupid ways. It just happened. Yeah. It wasn't something that was planned by everybody. It just happened. There's a lot of guys with the same names, first names, and we don't want to use last names and stuff like that. So everybody wound up getting a nickname. I mean, nobody used their official first name and last name, and so everybody got a nickname. It was just easier to remember and to work with. And it was something that evaded law enforcement in case you got caught on tape. You didn't want to say a guy's name, hey, I'm going to go meet with Salvatore Gravano. If that tape ever came out in court, how could you say they're not talking about you? So if they're talking about, I'm going to go meet with the Bull, it means something, but not too much. When I was a kid, my father and my mother bought me a bike, a Schwinn, a brand new bike, and they were broke. I had to take care of it. I stopped by a grocery store, left the bike outside. When I came out, first day, and it was gone. A couple of days later, my friends saw it. They said, Sammy, it's down the block near the fruit and vegetable store. Right across the street from the fruit and vegetable store, there was a club, a bar named The Wabbit. And all mob guys used to hang out there. When I went down there, I saw two kids who were a little older than me, and they had my bike, and I grabbed it. They didn't want to give it up. I started fighting for it. One guy came across, and he said, are you Jerry and Kay's son? And I said, yeah. And he had us apart. I was bleeding, crying a little bit, and I said, this is my bike, and I'm not giving it up. So he said, what do they call you? I said, I'm Sammy. My name is Sammy. And I got that through my uncle. My uncle's name was Sammy, and he was Big Sammy, and I was Little Sammy. Even my family gave me that nickname of Sammy. When he broke us up, one of the guys from across the street, mob guy, yelled across, what's going on? This is Jerry and Kay's son. His name is Sammy. You see him? He was fighting. They robbed his bike. He was fighting like a little bull. He wouldn't give up the bike. And that name, the Bull, stuck. Later in life, in a gang, they were calling me that. Later on, the cops, when they were looking for me, called me that. Everybody called me that. It just stuck like glue. So it's not something I invented or made, and it happened to a lot of guys the same way. Later on, when I got pinched, it's in newspapers, it's in magazines, it's all over the place. It just stuck like glue. You got a nickname, you were stuck with it, whether you liked it or not. I didn't like it when it first happened, I got used to it. But you don't go around changing your names and nicknames for different reasons. It's just not, it's not done. Yeah, there was a guy, Louis DeBono, and he had a big belly, and there was a contract put on him. And when we talked about him, we used Jelly Belly, that if we ever got caught on tape, they wouldn't know who the hell we were talking about. Some guys are fat, they'll call him Jelly Belly, or something else. Or somebody looks like a schmuck, they'll call him a schmuck. Whatever it is, because that really wasn't his nickname. We called him that. And when I cooperated with the feds years later, they even asked me, they had no clue. Who was Jelly Belly? And I told them it was Louis DeBono. And Tony Ducks, I'm not exactly sure. There's a few stories that floated around, but from what I understand is that the feds were looking for him. He went under lamb, he took off. And when guys would talk about him, they would say, where's Tony? Oh, Tony Ducks, he's on it. He's gone. So the name Tony Ducks was basically because he was on the lam and he was ducking police subpoenas or questions or whatever. Yes, I met him a couple of times. I didn't go out drinking with him. When you say personally, I don't know. Personally, we weren't pals hanging out. So no, not that way. But I met him as a boss at meetings. Sometimes I was there for security. Sometimes I was there for other reasons. I met him a few times and I know him. He's a pretty good guy. Carlo Gambino or Castellano, they had a big nose, so a beak. So we call him Nazar Beak. Now, we wouldn't use his name, Paul Castellano. I mean, some guys said Paul, and we knew who you were talking about, but sometimes they would say Nazar Beak. Well, Big Paul, it was another name for Paul Castellano, but there was other guys with the name Big Paulie as well. Yeah. So, but they knew who you were talking about. When you're in a situation, if it's going to pertain to a situation with the Gambino family or something like that, and you said Big Paulie, you kind of knew it was Paul Castellano. You know, guys understood the life, understood how to talk it. It's like saying, why did you speak Italian? Because that's what the fuck I do. I speak Italian. So mob guys talked mob talk. They understood it. It wasn't for the outsiders to understand it or know it or care about it one way or another. But I got a lot of questions about guys' nicknames and how they got it. So I'm trying to give it to you as straight as humanly possible. And Paul is a hard name to use against him in court. There's a lot of guys named Paul. Most of the times when we talked, we would just say Paul. But most of the times they were pretty serious conversations and we just said Paul. I don't remember calling him Paulie myself. And I don't remember too many people calling him that. And again, this isn't something that was thought about. It was just something that happened. It's part of the life. You wound up with a nickname, whether you liked it or not. You know, if you cooperated, they would call you a rat or whatever, but not a nickname, no. They usually put down what your name was or what you were called. We're talking about Vincent Gigante. When he was younger, he was a boxer. And he had a chin like cement. You hit him, you couldn't do anything. So that name Chin came from his boxing years, and it stuck with him. And he loved it, not because he liked the name, but if you got caught on tape talking about Chin, you'd have to prove Chin is really him in court. So he thought it in that context. And he told people, don't ever let me catch you on tape saying my name, Vincent Gigante. So people knew to use the name Chin. He took it a step further and he said, when you're talking to each other, you don't even have to say my name, Chin. Just touch your chin. I'm going to meet this guy. That's all you had to do. And we knew that you were talking about Chin, Gigante. He earned that name that way through boxing, and then even the word chin, he didn't want you to say after a while. I thought he had a good strategy. He used that strategy for a long time, like he was crazy, he was mentally unable. And again, that goes back to court. If you can't understand the charges you're being charged with, then you really can't be prosecuted. And he got away with it for a long time. He walked around the streets in a robe with a full beard almost. We didn't grow hair on the face, mob guys, but he was doing this whole thing. He did a lot of things to throw the law off his back, or figuring one day when I get pinched, there's going to be a lot of different kinds of stories. It's going to be hard to convince a jury. He had that in mind when he was doing things all the time. It was pretty slick, and it worked for years, but sooner or later it didn't work, and he got arrested and he was found guilty. I read online in some newspaper or some fucking place or online that he got the name Jimmy the Weasel because when he was a kid, he would run and grab groceries and steal them and run away like a little fucking weasel. I don't know if that's true. I read that somewhere, but this is what I know. One of the guys in the Gambino family had a major catering place where they put on shows and everything like that. You got tickets, you went there, and I went one night. I was already made, and I was there by myself with my wife. And there was a break, and I was sitting at a table with my wife. And the guy who owned the place, I can't think of his fucking name either right now, but he was a May guy. And he came over to me and he said, Sammy, I need to talk to you. I got up and I said, what is it? He said, there's a guy here, he's a boss in California of a crime family. His name is, they call him Jimmy the Weasel. He wants to meet everybody who's a made guy as a friend of ours, meaning a made guy. So I said, listen, I'm here alone with my wife. Leave me out of it. Let him meet other people. Just leave me out of the conversation. He obviously didn't. He probably told him that I didn't want to be introduced. I didn't want to be bothered. I was alone with my wife. And he came over to me and he says that he was Jimmy the Weasel. We can't introduce ourselves. We can't recognize ourselves unless a third party introduces us. Now, I was never introduced to this guy, so I don't have to recognize who he is. So he told me out of his mouth, I'm the boss of California, and you didn't want to meet me? Who the fuck do you think you are? So I said, listen, bro. Now, he's not allowed to do that. Boss or no boss. So I said, listen, bro, I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm here with my wife. You're talking a little loud to me. She hears it. And I don't give a fuck who you are. Take a walk. He got really uppity with that, and I said, listen, I'm going to tell you one more fucking time. Get away from me or I'll break your fucking jaw. Well, I saw the show. There was no problem that night. But the very next day, I got called by Paul Castellano. And Paul Castellano was obviously told the story. And I told him exactly what happened, like I'm telling you. So he said, you were never introduced to him as a friend? I said, no. Never. And he told me he was a boss in California. He told you that? Yeah. That's breaking our rules. So Paul sat back and said, good. Then I'm glad you did that. No problem. A day or two later, or a week later, whatever it was, Paul Castellano called me in again and said, remember that guy that you had the problem with, Jimmy the Weasel? Yeah. Yeah, I remember. He said, I'm going to tell you something crazy. He's not a boss. There's no such thing as this boss in California. I found out who he is. He broke the rule by saying that, number one. He lied to you about being a boss. I think he's a made guy, but from what I'm hearing, they're thinking he's a confidential informant. That's why he wanted to meet people. He was capturing guys' names and putting it on tape. So whatever you said to him is on tape. I'm glad you talked like that. It was the end of that meeting. But sure enough, later on, we found out that he was a confidential informant, and he was never a fucking boss. I assumed that Weasel title, that's why he inherited that in life. I didn't think about it then, but once I found out he was a confidential informant, he was never even a boss, that name was good for him, Jimmy the Weasel. Another nickname I remember is a guy named Tony Roach. He was one guy who was in John Gotti's crew. He wasn't a made guy. He wasn't a friend of ours. He lived upstairs from John's club. Big, tall, very muscular, ugly guy. And I don't know how he got that name Roach, but everybody called him Roach or Tony Roach. He's the type of guy, when I wanted to collect money from somebody who wasn't paying on time properly, I would say, Tony, would you take a ride with me? As soon as you saw this motherfucker you pay on time, you were scared of him. So, but he wasn't a bad guy. He was just fucking super ugly. And I guess that's why he got that name, Roach. He looked like a fucking roach. A big, giant roach. I liked him. He was a good guy. He was, he was a junkie. I guess that's why he never got made. He used to live upstairs from John's club. Used to clean up a little bit. Wasn't a bad guy. John abused him all the time. And I felt sorry for him a lot of times. Maybe that's why I liked him, but I felt bad for him. He didn't deserve that. He was loyal to John and did the right thing, cleaning up and doing whatever he did. But it is what it is. Some guys get abused. They don't like it. They should walk away. He never walked away that I know of. But that was his name, Tony Roach. They just stuck to a last name, Gotti, and or John. I didn't call him Gotti. Every time I went to somebody, I said John. They knew who I was talking about. Guys know who you're talking about when you're talking about an issue. John Gotti got the nickname, the Teflon, Don, because he kept beating cases. What they really didn't know, or maybe you don't know, that we were fixing trials, bribing witnesses, threatening witnesses, doing all kinds of things. And that's how he beat those cases. After I cooperated, he had nobody fixing those cases, and he was found guilty right away. First time out of the box. The media literally gave him that nickname, the Teflon Don, the Dapper Don, because he dressed good. They gave him those names. He loved them, by the way. When he saw those names, the Dapper Don or the Teflon Don, he loved those fucking names. These guys in the news, if they would have known, he would have gave them $100,000 to put that label out. But he loved those names, for sure. But he was a narcissist, and that's what a narcissist likes to be. He didn't really deserve those names because they did not know how he was beating them just because the public loved him. I doubt it. A lot of times now, if you said they changed the law, Donald made a speech today. Who the fuck would you think Donald is? Donald is the president of the United States, and he's the guy who changes laws. So it's just that way. It's the same thing with the Mafia, and I think it's the same thing with a lot of people. Everybody wound up getting a nickname, whether you created it, whether somebody else created it. Usually somebody else creates it. If you're talking about something in the construction business and stuff like that, and they could turn around somebody and just say, I met with the bull and I got an okay with this union or that union. The bull is me. He would have to actually say Sammy the bull. He might, but he don't have to. The other guy who's talking to, he would know right away who you're talking about, because I had a reputation with dealing in construction and unions and stuff like that. If you were talking about the garbage industry, Jimmy Brown had a nickname. His name was Jimmy, and Brown wasn't his name. His name was Fiella. Jimmy Fiella, I think. But you knew exactly what he was talking about. So nicknames come about that way, come and go. Some people don't get any nickname, but it's rare. It's very rare. Crazy Joe. Crazy Joe is guaranteed Crazy Joe Gallo. But he had that name for a long, long time. How he got that name, everything he did was crazy. So it's hard to say how he got that name, but he did a lot of crazy shit. There was a Gallo and Profaci war that became a Gallo and Colombo war against Carmine Persico. So when you were talking about Crazy Joe, you knew exactly, mob guys, who they were talking about because of the war. Oh, he did a lot of work. He did killing a lot of people. It was, a tough guy. There's no question about him being a tough guy. He had a contract. He was fighting a war. He went to dinner with his wife and his family in a restaurant down in Mulberry Street, and that's where he got hit. I mean, he goes in there with a bodyguard, but not enough. And they got in touch with Matty the Horse, who was a guy, a captain in the Genovese family, and he owned that place, Umberto's, and famous place. And when he went in there was guys who saw him. They wanted to make the hit, but they knew Matty owned the place. They got in touch with Matty, talking a little bit off the record, quiet, and changing. But they said, he's in your place, and we could get him. We just need your okay. And he gave his okay. Take him out. They did take him out there. They shot him. They killed the bodyguard in the place, was killed. He staggered out. He lived for a while, staggered out into the street. There was another shooter and got him in the street, hit him again. He died. And Umberto's became a famous restaurant because of that hit. It involves Matty the Horse. It's another nickname, Matty the Horse. Now, why he got the name Horse, I don't know, but Matty the Horse, you immediately knew what he owned and what family he came from and his rank. Mob guys. So to sum it up, you just got a nickname, and that's the way it was. I mean, there's all kinds of kids who got nicknames in school. You didn't have to be in a mob to get a nickname. It's just the way it falls. But I hope you liked it. I hope you liked the facts of the stories, especially these stories that I'm telling you now. And they all have a little bit of a history and background. So with that, I hope you liked the stories. And like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next show. Adios.